Welcome everyone to our webinar for today. We'll get started in just a second while everyone is coming into the room. It's really great to see everyone. Awesome. Welcome. We'll get started in just a second. But if you are here, go ahead and let us know in the chat your name, your business, your industry. We always love to see who we have on our call. You can just put that into the chat or the question section of our webinar area, and I'll be able to see that. We'll get started in about 1 minute while we let everyone come into the webinar room. Awesome. All right, we've got private education represented as far as the industry. We've got care homes and healthcare represented. Awesome. The automotive sector, good to see you. Education, awesome. Thanks. Keep those coming in. Let us know who you are, your industry. Really great to see that as we move forward. Awesome. Good deal. I think we've got a good number in the room, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see here. If this is your first time with us joining our webinar, a special welcome to you. We are LOCALiQ, one of the fastest growing digital marketing agencies in the UK. We specialize in SEO, PPC, and paid social advertising. We also work with display advertising and even website design. We're part of the NewsQuest Media Group, which is more than 200 trusted brands from across the UK. And so that means we can even help your business make print advertising a part of your overall marketing strategy as well. So our webinar today, Mastering Google Analytics 4, your questions answered. This is going to be our agenda for today. Marketing a business isn't as easy as just opening the doors and watching customers flood in, especially if your business doesn't have doors, right? There are so many things that go into building and marketing a successful business, and one of those things is being able to measure the effectiveness of your marketing campaigns and website traffic. So in this session, we're going to be looking at the new GA4, Google Analytics 4, and unlocking some of the features that you might be struggling to find, especially if you're just starting out. The format of today's session is a Q&A style. And so we've got a list of frequently asked questions that people have asked while trying to navigate GA4. And I've got a lot of screenshots to give you because I want you to have a visual to help you find your way around. All right, so let's see. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items to cover. After the webinar, you will receive an email that will have the recording of the session. So feel free to replay as often as you need as you move to action some of the steps and the strategies I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to be covering a lot in the short 45 minutes that we have today, so be sure to use that replay. I think it'll be very helpful. We'll also be sending you a few other helpful resources. You should have already received the webinar workbook today, so if you want to take notes along the way, that should be in your email, or you can go to the handout section of this webinar platform and download that. And then we're also going to send you a Getting Started to Google Analytics 4 guide in your inbox after the webinar on tomorrow. So I think both of those things will be really helpful for you to take notes with. Also, if you have questions along the way during the presentation, feel free to put them into the chat Q&A area right there where you all were letting me know that you were on the call and introducing yourselves. My LOCALiQ colleagues are there waiting to answer some of those questions. So as I'm going through, feel free, you don't have to wait until our Q&A section at the end. You can go ahead and start putting in your questions there, and my team is they're awaiting your questions. All right, so let's jump in. Let me get my screen here. Awesome. All right, let's jump in. This is what you need to know. As of 1st of July in 2023, this year, the traditional Google Analytics known as Universal Analytics, also UA, is going away. And you'll need to make sure that the new version, GA4, is updated on your website. Otherwise, your business will not be able to track and analyze your website traffic. And if you don't export the data that your website has accumulated over the past X months or number of years, your business is going to lose that historical insight too. And so we'll talk more about that shortly. So what's changing? So that's what's changing, but why is it changing? And it's changing because the world and the internet is changing. In fact, a lot has changed since Google Analytics UA, Universal Analytics, that's the old version, was first introduced about 11 years ago. Businesses now have multiple platforms they need to track. It's not just about your website. Some businesses have apps, and customers navigate through both the website and the app almost interchangeably. And then when we have things like the third-party cookie data, which is being phased out, and that was a major way of UA being able to report on the data and the insights that we're also familiar with. So as much as we may not like change, our businesses have to evolve with Google on this one. We've got to do it. GA4 will bring the data of your customers on your website, on your app, and other platforms all together in one space, so you can see one big picture instead of fragmented reports. You get to understand in this new GA4 the entire customer journey on your website, not just standalone actions that they may take. And then there are a lot of new predictive capabilities and integrations available as well that allow you to benefit from the insights of machine learning processes. And you can incorporate those into your marketing strategy so that you can be more proactive instead of reactive in your approach. So here's our first question for today. How do I check if my website is using Universal Analytics or Google Analytics 4? And this is important because if you created your property, your website before October 2020, you're likely using Universal Analytics, the old Google Analytics. If you created your website or property after October 2020, then you're more than likely using Google Analytics 4 already, and you may not need to take any action. So here's how you check. When you go to the admin area of your Google Analytics, look at your properties. These are like your websites that you're tracking. And underneath the name, there's an ID. You see the IDs here. And if the ID starts with UA, then it's Universal Analytics, the old version. And if the ID is just a number, then you're using GA4 and you should be probably good to go. But if you don't have GA4, that brings us to our next question, which is, how do I set it up? All right, how do I set it up? Well, there are two scenarios. Scenario one is you're installing Google Analytics for the first time ever on your website. And scenario two is you've already got Google Analytics UA installed and you just need to upgrade. So let's go through scenario one first. First, you need to create a Google Analytics account. And so to do that, you go to your admin area. Then you look for where it says create a property. And then you want to go to add a data stream. And here you can select the type of property data will be coming from, if it's an app, Android, or a website. And then the fourth step is to connect the property so that data can be fed through to Google Analytics. There are a few ways you can achieve this. Some website builders allow you to easily add GA code to your website from the control panel, or you can add the tag code to your website manually or with a tool like Google Tag Manager. Scenario two, that is what you Scenario 2, this is what you do if you already have Universal Analytics installed on your website and you just need to upgrade. And so if that's the case for you, our pro tip is to use the GA4 Setup Assistant Wizard to help you get started. You need to have at least one person, or you need to have at least an editor role assigned as your user account in Google Analytics. So that's important, especially if you work with a team and several people have access to your Google Analytics. And the wizard will create your new property, and it'll activate some of the enhanced measurements that come with GA4 automatically. And so installing and upgrading Google Analytics is probably the most technical bit of our session today and of this process. If you feel like you need more help, I encourage you to speak with a web developer to help you through this process. In fact, if you're working with LOCALiQ to build your website, or if you're working with our SEO team, just let our team know and we'll do our best to support you. Speaking of our website and our SEO team, on our last webinar, we talked about common website mistakes that most businesses make. And one mistake was not installing analytics and tracking tools early in the process. Instead, most businesses wait. That's not something you want to wait on, because if you install it from the beginning, you'll be able to benefit and see performance trends early on. And so that webinar and several other webinars are available to watch on demand on our website. So make sure you take a look at that. Can I continue using Universal Analytics after installing Google Analytics 4? The answer is yes, but only until July. And when Google forces that switch, you won't have access for much longer after that. So in the meantime, when you go into your admin area and you look at your accounts, you'll see, like we saw earlier, two profiles. The UA version is the old Universal Analytics version. And if you click this one, the one that has the numbers, this will be your GA4 version. When you click into your Universal Analytics version, you'll see the data as you're familiar with, but really what you should do is export that data or reports that your business regularly uses. Because remember, historical data will not carry over into the new GA4 version. So export it while you still have time. And when you're exporting it, I encourage you to export like the Excel version or the CSV file, because that will allow you to import and play with the data later, while the PDF will only be like a printable snapshot. So moving along, what can I measure? Well, just about everything. If your business has multiple websites, multiple apps, you can make all of that data feed into the same reports without having to switch between instances or the extra work of adding numbers together. It's just as simple as adding new data streams and codes to each of the platforms. One thing that I'm sure everyone on the call knows about business is that in most cases, sales don't just happen, right? It's actually a series of events that take place in the customer's life, and a number of interactions they have with your business from the time they realize that you can help them solve their pain point to the time they actually make the purchase. And all those small interactions, from them coming to your website, searching on your website, watching a video, all of those things are small steps that lead to that large goal of making a purchase. And that is what GA4 does very well. I'll tell you about all of those small steps that the user is taking a little bit later. But the old version of Google Analytics could only report on whether or not that large goal was completed or not. It didn't have any metrics that would tell you about everything that led up to that point. And that's really valuable information. So that's what GA4 allows you to do now. So talking about measuring things, the next question is, where are all the reports? When you go into Google Analytics, the main navigation has 4 main buttons. Home and reports is where we suggest you start looking at first. And Explore allows you to start building custom reports, and advertising gets you to conversion paths and attributions. The Home tab will give you a dashboard report of how your website is currently performing. Here it shows how your website is performing like within the last 7 days, but you can toggle this to show you different time periods very quickly. Here it tells you some real-time insights like what's happened on your website in the last 30 minutes. And then when you scroll down, you'll be able to see some cards down here, which is Google offering you some intuitive insights that it thinks it will be helpful for you to see. When you have, or when you go to the reports tab, you'll notice there are 3 categories of reports: acquisition, engagement, and monetization. Acquisition, this is where, right here, this is where you'll see things that'll help you understand how users discovered and came to your website or property. Engagement, this helps you learn about the actions that users are taking while they're on your website or app. And then finally, monetization. This is Google helping you understand your conversions and what that means for your business financially if you input that data into the settings. The next question is, what is the difference between users versus traffic? Users versus traffic. When you're looking under the reports tab, you'll see user acquisition, and you'll also see traffic acquisition. User acquisition shows how you first acquired the users who were active within that chosen reporting period or that date range. And traffic acquisition shows new sessions from both new and returning users in that chosen date range. So that's the difference. And another question that we get a lot is, I use bounce rate. And so is that still going to be a thing? The answer is in GA4, it looks at bounce rate a little bit differently. It looks at bounce rate and how users interact with the website a little bit differently than UA, and here's how. So in UA, the bounce rate was the infamous metric that suggested that if a person came to your website and did not interact with the page, or they didn't go to another web page within your site and they left, that was a very bad sign. Remember that? That's the bounce rate. But in GA4, Google simply puts users into 2 categories. Either they're not engaged or they're engaged. And so if a person is on your website for 10 seconds or less and leaves without triggering any events, then they're not engaged. But if a person stays on your website for more than 10 seconds and they trigger 1 or more events or pages, then they're considered to be engaged with your website, engaged with your business, engaged with your brand. And in today's world, especially as we talk about micro conversions and interactions that lead up to that ultimate purchase, it is very possible that a person these days could come to your website and within 15 or 20 seconds get the answer that they need to get them further down that buyer's journey. And so what we used to think was a bad thing, we now know could actually be good. So that's the improvement in GA4 when it comes to bounce rates. All right, next question. How do I see my landing pages in GA4? All right, well, in the old Google Analytics, it was pretty clear where to go. You see it here. It was prominently labeled landing pages, but in GA4, you have to view it under the report section or create a custom report. Now, I will say, while we were preparing for this webinar, we noticed in Google's GA4 demo account that they have added an easy to find landing page tab under the engagement reports. So maybe that's a feature they'll roll out soon. But as it is today, in our version of GA4, these are the steps that we've had to take in order to generate these landing page reports. And so I wanted to share that with you. Let me show you. All right, so this is the new GA4 layout. And under the Reports tab, under Engagement, you'll see Pages and Screens. And it'll pull up this view for you. And over here, where it says Event Count, it's right behind my box there, it says Event Count. If you go there and you click down, you want to make sure that it says Session Start, okay? You want to make sure that that's selected, and then once you do that, here, this is all the data of the metrics. This is all the data for the pages that people are entering your website or app on. So these are the landing pages. When you go to event count and make sure that this says session start, these are the landing pages, okay? The other way to generate a landing page report is to create a custom report, so a little bit more effort. You have to go to the Explore tab, and then once you go there, you click on Freeform. And then it'll bring you to a setup like this. And when you get here, you'll want to select landing page and query streams as a row. And if it's not here already, you'll need to click the plus sign next to dimensions. You'll have to search for it and then click the tick box and then import it so it can come up over here. For your columns, you want to make sure that it says first user, medium, and then for your values, you want to make sure that it says active users, and you'll get a report like this that will tell you the landing pages that people are landing on and what advertising medium, organic, CPC, referral traffic, affiliate traffic brought that person to your website or to your app. All right, so moving along, the next question is, how do I see my user behavior flow? Well, that's a great question because marketers want to see user behavior flow to and from different pages, and they want to see events or interactions that are taking place. And so one view really could never show that, and that's what the old Google Analytics offered. They just offered that one view. And so the solution is to make a customizable flow or path exploration report that you can adapt to the needs of your business in the new GA. And so let me pull that up. So if you go under Explore, you'll want to go over to Path Exploration, and then it'll bring you to a page like this. And under Starting Point, you'll want to select the event name node, and then you'll want to select a session start, okay? And then for step 1, you'll want to drop down and make sure that it says page title and screen. All right. And so you want to keep doing that, keep repeating that process by clicking on a node first to get that next batch of data. And you want to do it for as many steps as you like to see. And what it will show you are the different pages and how people are moving through your website, much like that historical report you may be familiar with in the old GA. Now, here is a pro tip, okay? It's really great to see how people are moving through your website from the start, but what's even more powerful is understanding the pathway that generates the most conversions. So you can encourage more people to go down that path, that specific path, if you know what it is. So to do that, we follow very similar steps to what we just did, but instead of working on the starting point side, you work on the ending point side. You select event name, And this time, instead of or I'm sorry, at this time, instead of selecting session start, you'll select generate lead. And you should have something similar like this in your GA4 if you have a goal that's been set up, like a contact form has been completed, and then a user is taken to a thank you page. So something like generate lead. And it'll generate a report like we just had, but instead it's coming from the other direction and it's moving that way, kind of backwards. And again, you can add in step by step to see what pages actually led people or to see what steps actually led to those conversion points. So great question on that one. The next question is, how do I set up events, conversions, and goals? Events, conversions, and goals. Well, the first thing to know is that the name has changed in GA4. And so goals are now conversions. And they can be much more than a page that loads. Now in GA4, conversions are events that take place on your website. For example, a person conducting a search query on your website, scrolling down a significant portion of your web page, or downloading a brochure. So the first thing, you go to admin, you go to and it'll come up with this. You want to go over to events. I'm sorry, yep, you want to go over to events. It should be events there, and then you'll get a screen like this will come up. And you want to make sure that you classify the conversions that have already here, because some of these conversions, if you've already got it set up, it should be there. One second, I think my screen here. Let me go back. There we go. All right, so when you come here, you go to sources and medium, and then this shows you all of the different conversion points that you have on your website already. And right here, you can see the different sources of that traffic and what's generating most of those leads. So the next question is, how do I create a thank you page event? So a thank you page event, we always talk a lot about thank you pages a lot because they're really important to measure the success of your marketing. A thank you page is simply a page that loads after a user has done something that you wanted them to do, like filling out the contact us form, and measuring which channels and events support the conversion is like the first step to optimizing for an increased return on your marketing investments. So to create a events and thank you page, you go to events and you go and click create here, and it'll bring you to a page like this. And we already have a few set up here, but if you don't have any set up or you want to create one, you would just click create. Let's see. And when you click on that, it'll bring you to this form, and let me fast forward it because here is what it will look like once you put in some actual data. You want to make sure that you've got a custom name. For example, like thank you page. For you, it could be a newsletter thank you page or a contact us thank you page, something that's going to help you and your team remember which conversion points it's referencing. And then parameters like these, page view and page location. So once you set that up, go ahead and submit it, and then it'll bring you back here. And after a few minutes, it should populate in this section. And then once it shows up here, just make sure that you toggle on to mark it as a conversion. All right, so a few more final questions in a speed round. Let's see. Can I connect Search Console to GA4? The answer is yes. And in the admin area, under product links, you'll see Search Console. So right here, just click on that, and then you can follow the steps to add that in. Next question is, how do I add my Google Ads accounts? Because sometimes it's helpful to see side by side your website traffic and your PPC Google Ads and how the traffic are engaging in the same. And to do that, same thing, you go to your admin, under product links, you'll see Google Ad links. Just click that and follow those steps. Can I include external traffic? Can I exclude internal traffic from my reports? Yes, you can. In fact, let me share with you how to do it. So if you want to exclude the internal traffic, and this could be traffic that you and your employees contribute to your website, it's probably best practice to remove it so that way the data doesn't skew your insights and reports. So to do that, you just go to data streams, and then you'll see the different properties. Click on that arrow, and then you'll be able to see something that says configure tag settings. Click that. And then once you get into that space, you'll want to click on define internal traffic. And here is where down here, you'll add in all of your IP addresses and other settings that you want to identify and exclude as internal traffic. All right, so I know that was quick, I know it was a lot, but thank you for sticking with me through those. I hope that it was helpful. I know we covered it very quickly, but as I mentioned, you'll receive the recording of this session and a few other resources in your inbox tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And when you get the recording, again, feel free to rewind it, pause it, and use it as you're going step by step yourself inside of GA4. And I'm sure things will probably click a little bit better than they may be doing it right now. And also, when you exit this webinar, a survey will show. Please do take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts on what we covered, but you'll also have the opportunity to indicate if you'd like to speak to a LOCALiQ digital marketing expert to discuss your website, SEO, Google Analytics, or even your digital advertising strategy, because I know it can be a lot, but you don't have to go down this road by yourself. We've got experts who are ready to help. And then one last thing before we get to the Q&A section, so definitely submit your questions because we're about to have the Q&A portion of our webinar for today. But one thing I wanted to let you know about is our free website grader tool, which is on our website. I encourage everyone to make sure you do that because it's totally free and it's like an MOT report for your website. It's very helpful, very insightful. All right, so along the way, my colleagues have been in the chat answering your questions live, and so we've got some time to answer a few right now. Let's see, let me go over to my chat, and if we aren't able to answer your question live, don't worry, we're going to post all the answers in a follow-up blog on our website this week. So let me open up my questions here. Awesome. All right, so the first question I have is, what is the difference between GA4 and Universal Analytics in terms of ease of use? Okay, good question. Well, although it differs greatly from UA in many respects, GA4 is not necessarily difficult to use. I think the biggest challenge is getting used to getting used to its layout because we're very familiar with the old layout. So it's a new layout and functionality is recorded a little bit differently. And so there'll be likely challenges also in learning how to use the new platform for those who aren't accustomed to Universal Analytics. So I think those are the things that will make it a little bit challenging for ease of use. And then also the lack of historical data in GA4 will probably make reporting difficult from a usability perspective. So if you haven't, make sure that you make the switch to GA4 so that way you can start getting that data coming in, and that'll probably help the process too when you're trying to create comparison reports. Good question. Another question here, should I migrate to GA4 myself or just wait for Google to do it for me? Yeah, that's a good question, because now when you log into Google Analytics, the message from Google has changed to say, hey, make sure you make the change, and if not, we're going to force it for you. And so they're soon going to be finished with that option as to where people can uh, do it themselves or not. Unless you opt out of it, Google will actually do it. But one of the benefits of doing it yourself is that you can choose what custom dimensions and goals you want to set. And so if you allow Google to automatically set up GA4, you'll get standard metrics, and it may not be aligned with your business goals. So don't just let Google do it. I really encourage you to do it yourself. Utilize the setup wizard, and utilizing the setup wizard is different than Google forcing and doing it for you automatically. When you use the setup wizard, you at least are still able to walk with Google while those changes are being implemented, and then you can again make sure that the metrics and everything that you're tracking is aligned with what's important to your business. All right, keep those questions coming in. Got one more here. Let's see. What is the most impactful way you can use Google Analytics to steer your marketing campaign decisions? Good question. So the website user data is one of the most important metrics, right? Analyzing how a user navigates your website can allow you to make decisions and set strategy. In Universal Analytics example, if you have a high bounce rate on a page, you could visit that page to find out why. Maybe a landing page call to action could be broken and then people just leave. But now in GA4, since we've got a different perspective on what it means for bounce rate and a person bouncing, remember we talked about it may not always be a bad thing if a person comes to your page and leaves, especially if they found the information that they're looking for. I think GA4 will push marketers to think about their strategy more and the buyer's journey when they've come to your website from a campaign, because I see a lot, advertisers will spend a lot in paid ads, they'll get a lot of traffic, and then they don't see any sales from their website. And they'll say, well, my marketing isn't working. But that may not be the case. It could be your landing page experience, and beyond that, the items and opportunity you have on your website to allow those little interactions between the user and your business to take place that lead up to that purchase. And that's what GA4 does a really good job in helping marketers think about. Cool. Let's see, another question here. What are the best Google Analytics tools and tips for charities? All right, good one. Well, using GA4, I think, can really help a charity analyze their website traffic, see where users are coming from, as well as like what actions they take. And you can measure the success of even some of your marketing campaigns and fundraising campaigns that you do offline. You can see how it's performing and corresponds with your website too. And so that information can be very helpful. And if you make the changes, your charity can benefit from it as well. Here's a question. I currently use Google Data Studio templates for my monthly reporting. Will these be affected by the transfer to new analytics? Do I need to do anything in advance? And I love Data Studio. It's a great way to visualize data, especially if you just have numbers in Excel. And so you can integrate Google Data Studio with GA4. You just need to connect your GA4 property to Data Studio. And then once you have set up GA4, you'll need to log into Data Studio and select that as a data source. And then that should be that should be in the Google Analytics connector. That should be the connection that you need. Here's one that's also kind of related to that. Um, how can you integrate old Google Analytics universal data into the new GA4 analytics, so you can refer back to past results? I can't see a way to do this now without downloading all the historical data. Yeah, really, the sooner you make the switch to Google Analytics 4, the better. Um, Firstly, you should download all the historical data like we talked about from your old version of Google Analytics as an Excel or as a CSV file. I mean, as far back as Google will allow you. Sometimes it'll only allow you 3 or 6 months to go back. However far back it'll allow you to go back, I encourage you to do that. And then use that Excel version of the data, and you probably could use a tool like Data Studio to put the old and the new together. That's unique for your business. That's a really advanced report style, but the easiest thing probably would be just to make sure you make the switch to GA4 so that you've got at least a good quarter of data to refer back to. But if you need to refer back to 12 months ago, your best bet will probably be to download the Excel reports and then use a visualization tool like Data Studio to put the data together. All right. Great questions. So I want to end it there so that way we can keep to time. We've got some other questions that have been answered in the chat. So thank you to my team who's been answering those questions. If there were a few detailed questions that came through that we may not have been able to answer live, but definitely take a look at our blog after our call, and that way we'll be able to answer the questions there and maybe even give you some helpful links that can be a really good resource for you. Here, when you go to our website, you can watch not just this webinar when we make it available for on-demand viewing, but we've got several other webinars as well. Like I mentioned, the one from last month talked about common website mistakes, and previous to that we did one around search engine optimization and SEO. So I think those are really good resources for everyone to go and watch. And then again, as you're ending and exiting this webinar, a survey will show. And if you feel like you need some assistance and need some more help on a one-on-one basis, just feel free to indicate that. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We had a really great turnout. I really hope that, if nothing else, today's conversation helped demystify some of the things that you may have been thinking about Google Analytics 4. Hopefully, at least it increases your frame of reference as you go into GA4, maybe for the first time. And definitely save our recording of this and play it back as you're making some of those changes. All right, thank you, and I'll see you on our next webinar.